Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you guys joining me here today. Today is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026, and we are live. So happy to have you guys joining me here today on this beautiful stream. If you have not already, go ahead and please give a like to the stream. This helps me out to be able to reach more people. And also, if you're watching this on the rewatch, please go ahead and don't be shy of that hype button as well. If you guys have not already, you guys can also subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. Gives you email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles. So you guys have that there. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can ask a question. I give you a video response, or I react to the video that you find interesting at qbouncy.com/Jaybefaunt. So you guys have that there. Good to see all of you guys. I hope you guys are doing very well. It is a week full of news as we embark on this journey on Spaceship Earth. And there is a lot of dumpster fires that's happening as we speak. So we want to talk about those, as well as not just what's happening internationally, but nationally, as well as locally. We're going to be talking about those on this show today. So let's get into the chat to say hello, and then we will get into our stories for today. So we have starting off, we have Edward saying, "Hi, JB. Hope that you're doing well. The Orange Man and BB are not angry with each other. It is all theater." Yeah, I agree with you. It's just like how I think about a week and a half ago, I talked about Donald Trump, basically talking about how he's not happy with Benjamin Netanyahu, and apparently there was some phone call that happened where he was screaming at BB, when in reality it's all theater. These are actors. You got to remember, Donald Trump was also part of a reality TV show. So of course, after all that time, being the star of The Apprentice, he would know how to play things up for the camera, or at least for the people who are working in the West Wing, so that they can report on basically what's going on. They can be the insider in the White House to leak that information. It's all theater. Let's continue on. We have Nika says, "Hi, chat. Long time no see. Good to see you. Nice to have you in the chat. Good to see these familiar faces once again." Speaking of familiar faces, Miss DC Fairbank coming in saying, "Hey, everybody. Good to see you, Miss Dana. Nice to have you." Is it Dana or Donna? I'm always getting that wrong. Please correct me in the chat, because I want to make sure I get your name right, okay? All right, good to see you in here. Also, we have Jacqueline say, "Hey, JB, hey, everyone. Good to see you in here as well." We have Terry coming in saying, "Peace, comrades. Nice to have you in here, Terry." All right, we have Roger Meadows, aka Mr. Encyclopedia, coming in. Give a congratulations to Sabrina, 400,000 subs. Oh snap! What? She hit it? Wait. Whoa, wait. What up, James? Hang on. Let me. Oh, wait. Let me check. Hold up. Wait a minute. Oh. Wait. We gotta look at this up. Wait, I ain't got no music to share, unfortunately. But yo, my sister hit 400,000 subs. Oh my goodness. This is amazing. Sabby, if you are watching, congratulations to you on this milestone. This is huge. My sister done did the damn thing up in here. Man, that is too cool. Oh my gosh. Look, let's give her a round of applause in the chat, guys. Let's give her a round of applause. And look, yeah, we having a happy day today. This is great. She probably doesn't even realize yet, knowing her. She hasn't even been looking. But yo, this is great. And I'm gonna tell you exactly why this is so great, just to harp on this for a second. You gotta realize, first of all, how many Black women on the left that are anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, that talks about local politics, geopolitics, Black issues, issues involving women, issues involving workers. How many of them do you see reaching these levels? You don't. And I think it's so important that we have someone with her perspective giving these types of information to us so that we're able to see things from a different angle. And it is amazing to me that she's able to reach these numbers, because it's like you don't see this that often. And I think that a lane had to be created. She created a lane for herself in a space so that people can see something that is more refreshing, because we're constantly seeing the same demographic all the time. And so that, with the focus on accuracy and the focus on trying to be as consistent as possible. And look, I'm telling you right now, some of the people who hate on her, I'm gonna be real with you. It's time to stop hating and start congratulating. And plus, this system, hating on somebody who's trying to do what they can while also doing mutual aid in this system does us no good. We might as well stand with people like Savvy Sabs and continue to do the work of actually helping push for liberation, right? So congratulations to my sister. She's doing an amazing job. She has helped me. She has coached me. And I am nowhere near where she's at, but hopefully one day I can be at least a tenth of where she's at. So congratulations to my sister Sabs. All right. All right. Thank you very much for that notice, Roger. You always keeping a lookout on your sister. I appreciate that. K-Meg says JB is in the place to be, and he's got what it takes to rock the mic. Thank you so very much for that. Oh, you said going to listen in, but wanted to send love. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's always awesome to have you in here. All right. I'm sorry. Sean says, we definitely in danger, girl. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's Dana. Okay. Thank you very much. I just want to make sure I'm right. Holly coming in saying, hi, JB. It's Tuesday. It's JB Day. Yes. Tuesday is JB Day. Also a day for tacos. Yes, absolutely. And let's see, anybody who I haven't got to say hello to yet. We have John Kempener saying peace, love, and solidarity, aka Blue Marvel, aka Adam Bashir. All right. And yes, Nika says, he says exactly about Black women talking about left-leaning topics without whitewashing the Democratic Party. Bingo, that part right there. Absolutely. Because ultimately, you have to sift through the BS, which, she's very good at doing that. We have Bryce coming in saying, good afternoon, JB and comrades. Good to see you there. All right. Let me see. Who else I haven't said hello to? Let me see. I think we're good. Yes. And I'll leave with this note. Yes. Roger is absolutely right. Sabrina stands with us. Yes. All right. So it's just a little bit longer and she'll be at 500K. Boy, that's going to be a big celebration. That's going to be a huge celebration. Watch. And Sabby, if you're listening, I hope you have an extra taco today. All right, guys, let's get into this show. We have a few things that we're going to be talking about. It's going to be more worker focused, heavy on this, but also going to get into a little bit of geopolitics today, because I think that is very important, because that actually affects us here at home. But one story I'm going to have is worker focused. So it's going to be local. Another one's going to be worker focused, but that's going to be national. And then we're going to talk about geopolitical issues around the world that we're going to be discussing here today. So let's get into the thumbnail, and then we shall get into the rest of the show today. All right, so let's go in. So later in the show, we're going to talk about you get nothing. And which you are we talking about? Well, we're going to be talking about how the United States actually got nothing because of Donald Trump's big fat mouth. And so we're getting into that. and the implications of why this is going to really be a huge damning issue for us moving forward. We're going to be getting into all of that. Also, nationally, we're going to be talking about jobs, AI, and racism. We're going to be getting into that because, be honest with you, there was a study that came out of Stanford that I think we need to take a keen look at in regards to the job application tools that are being used by many companies now, and it is still employing racist tactics in order to keep out those of us who are Black and brown, particularly those of us who are Black. So we're going to get into that. But first, we're going to be talking about wages stolen. And this is happening in all places at Disney World here in Orlando. This is a local story, but it also is sort of national. But we got to talk about this. So we're going to get into the story first about stealing from workers. And behind the picture, you see that is EPCOT Center that is located in Walt Disney World Resort. So let's get into it. EPCOT is an acronym for Experimental Prototype City of Tomorrow. But in this City of Tomorrow, apparently wage theft is also included. Welcome to the show, guys. I hope that you are finding yourselves well, but unfortunately, some workers at a particular restaurant in this experimental prototype City of Tomorrow are not waking up to really good news. In fact, they are about to pursue legal action against a restaurant, a third-party restaurant that is in EPCOT here in Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando. So let's get into the story because I think this is absolutely imperative that we jump into here. And so let's show this story. This story is actually coming out of the Orlando Weekly. And so let me share my screen here. And says Disney EPCOT workers accuse third-party restaurant operator of wage theft. It says 4 workers employed by the Patina Group at EPCOT's Italy Pavilion have threatened to file a lawsuit over the issue. Now, it says EPCOT's Italy Pavilion. So let me share with you guys, if you have not been to Disney World, it's particularly EPCOT. EPCOT is basically, when you first come in, you have like the very futuristic part. They talk about, the city of tomorrow. They have the rides, they have the activities, things like that. But also surrounding this big lake is what they call the World Showcase. So it's different countries from around the world where you can stop in. I think there's like a England, there's like a Spain, there's like a Mexico, there's Japan, there's China, right? And you go around the world and you experience different cultures, in that World Showcase that they call. Well, in the Italy area, there's also a restaurant. And so this particular restaurant that is there, they are third parties. So not all restaurants around or within the theme park property are owned by the theme park. They are third party vendors. With that being said, let's get into the story because this is also very damning, not just of this third party company, but also of Walt Disney World and the Walt Disney Company itself. Some of y'all who watch this channel are going like, duh, James, but I digress. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So it says 4 cooks employed by the major third-party restaurant operator at Disney's EPCOT theme park have accused their employer, Patina Group, of underpaying them. Surprise, surprise, surprise. They threatened to file a lawsuit over the issue with the assistance of labor attorney running for Florida Attorney General if the Patina Group doesn't pay them what they say they're owed by July 2nd. So that's just Next week. It's next week. So I'll be keeping an eye on this. Let's continue. So it says we're taking action today because it isn't right to work without pay. So that's from Jennifer Quinones Estrada, a prep cook at EPCOT's Tutto Italia, speaking at a press conference. So she's one of the 4 cooks at Tutto Italia, a restaurant operated by the Patina Group, who alleged they were forced to perform off-the-clock pre-shift prep work for years without being paid. Years. And let's continue on here. She personally works 5 8-hour shifts a week. But that said, since October of 2020, she's been expected to show up to shifts half an hour early to prep without receiving compensation. So let's think about it this way. If you're coming in a half an hour early to do prep 5 days a week, that's 2.5 hours of pay that you are not receiving per week. That 2.5 hours of pay comes out to 10 hours a month, right? Now, let's say 10 hours a month. Let's say you're making $15 an hour and you're losing 10 hours a month. That's $150 a month you're losing out on. $150 goes a long way, right? So we're talking about them stealing well over $1,700 a year from her. Now take that $1,700 a year, times it by 5. See what I mean? So, and that's just not at base pay. That's also not counting overtime pay as well. Because what if she's already hitting her 40 hours by the time she's going over 40 hours by the time she hits her 5th day? And so she already is making overtime. Now, if she's working 8-hour shifts 5 days a week, 2.5 hours, guess what? All those hours that she lost that they're not paying her for are overtime. So that's 2.5 hours overtime. So you see how it adds up? And this is theft. Let's continue on. It says, Patina, she said pointedly, you broke the law and make it right. So she said she was joined Wednesday by members of her union, Unite Here Local 737. And in addition to State Representative Anna Escamani, by the way, Anna Escamani is actually running for, I think she's going to try to run for Orlando mayor, I think next year. But yeah, she's going to try to run it for Orlando mayor because I don't think, because Buddy Dyer's not running again, even though he's been mayor of Orlando for 22 years. And U.S. Congressman Maxwell Frost says, no matter what your political viewpoint is, we can all agree that when you do the work, you should get paid. And that's basically what she said. And she's also the daughter of a former part-time Disney World employee. A lot of people have worked at Disney. I actually tried and they didn't hire me. Maybe that's a good thing. It says Frost, a fellow progressive who's running unopposed for his congressional seat this fall, described the wage theft as the largest crime we have in this country, coupled with other forms of white-collar crime. That is true. I disagree with Maxwell Frost on how his approach to change really is, because I don't think that the Democrats ever go far enough. But one thing is absolutely true that he's right about. Wage theft is the largest form of theft that we have here in the United States, and I will show you guys receipts about that. And so it outpaces, larceny, it outpaces robbery, it outpaces so many different forms of theft. And it's really about stealing from you, the worker. And so, of course, one of the biggest multinational corporations, birds of a feather flock together. So, of course, third-party companies who also operate that same way will be attracted to Disney because they want to make as much money as possible, and that also includes stiffing workers. So let's continue on here. So it talks about how they have sustained Sugarman, Susskind, and Braswell as their legal counsel through the union. So their counsel is Jose Javier Rodriguez. Now, he is a labor attorney running for Florida State Attorney General this fall as a Democrat. And so let's continue here. It says altogether, the workers are collectively seeking $134,000 based on their regular pay rates and hours allegedly worked without pay, in addition to $7,700 for attorney fees. Quinones calculated unpaid wages, specifically including unpaid wages due at overtime rate, a total of $26,851 from shifts beginning October 1st of 2020. As hourly workers, employees rely on the wages for sustenance, and the law takes it seriously as employers' deprivation of their wages. So that's from their lawyers. And it says Florida wage, hour, and overtime laws are spelled out in the Fair Labor Standards Act, as well as the Florida Minimum Wage Act, modeled after the FLSA. So it says the Economic Policy Institute has highlighted Florida as one of the top states in the country for minimum wage violations. Florida, one of the top states in the country for minimum wage violations. And here's the funny part about this. A lot of people who go, oh my God, well, these billionaires and 100 millionaires and the employer owners, right? They're the job creators. And they come to Florida because there's no state income tax. But the funny thing is, if there's no state income tax, then why are they crying over wanting more money? Why are they so willing to steal more money when, in fact, they don't have a state income tax to pay? And in fact, our politicians are always trying to think of ways to cut their taxes. And so what are we to do? We just are left out to dry while they continuously steal out of our pockets. And it's continued wage theft against us while we suffer. Look at it here. What's going on right now? There's literally a war happening in West Asia that the United States caused, that's also causing our gas prices to go up. And it's causing us to have to pay more money, not just for food, but for transportation. Our electricity is going up. Are the goods that we need in order to survive are going up. And yet you still have these employers that really don't give a damn, don't really give any regard for us as workers, that want to keep raising the prices of everything, but then at the same time, they want to steal the wages that we are due. And they're already paying us starvation wages. Remember, homelessness is on the rise right now. And so they're adding insult to injury. Right? They're pouring salt on the wound while spitting in our face. And then telling us it's raining. And so Florida, it's like they come here because they know it is what they call a right to work state. And so they can get away with all these different things. Now, it says a problem that disproportionately affects immigrants, women, and service workers, and people of color. Wage theft collectively costs U.S. workers an estimated $15 billion each year. I'm willing to bet that that's an underestimate. And I'll show you guys why. It says headlines after headlines speak to Orlando as being a top tourism destination in the world. Our revenue generated from the tourism development tax continues to increase, and yet these are the everyday people that make those dreams a reality, that generate revenue for our community. They're not even going to get a piece of that revenue. No, we don't. We do not. Also, says several weeks ago, Patina Group workers at Disney's EPCOT, who are already unionized with Local 737, urged Disney against entering into any new business with the Patina Group, citing alleged violations of labor law. Now, they're trying to go through the NLRB, which the NLRB is pursuing judgment against them. But let's be real, right? The problem is the system, like I said before. And I just want to share a video because this is Anna Escamani actually speaking about what happened. And then I want to share with you guys also how this is really just birds of a feather flocking together, and how they are really just one and the same. Let me make sure I have it here. Because I want you guys to see this particular video here. Make sure I have the right one. Yes. Okay. All right. Let me share this with you guys. So this is Anna Escamani here in Florida. And let's go.
No matter what your political viewpoint is, we can all agree that when you do the work, you should get paid, period. And to have conglomerates as large as the Patina Group, companies that have contracts across the nation, to be nickel and diming workers, I mean, $27,000 is so much for a worker. I'm sure for the executives of the Patina Group, it is not that much. Like, that's the shock, right? The shock factor is the disparity between those that have perpetuated this broken rig system, continue to enrich themselves and their friends while everyone else struggles.
I'm going to push back on Anna Escamani really quick for a second, because this is one of the things like that annoys me about Democrats, because they still think that all we need to do is reform capitalism or regulate capitalism, and then everybody can get their piece of the pie, and then everybody can actually be good. All they got to do is just work hard. That's not how capitalism works. It is not broken. It is working as intended. This consequence of what's happening to her is working as intended. So that means that what the workers are going through is exactly the way capitalism wants it to, the way the corporate and the parasite class want it to. And so this is why when people like me talk about being against the system, they look at me like I'm crazy. And one of the things that is quite interesting, and this is not to continuously bash Democrats, because Republicans are also bad. It's just they're more overt about how bad they are. But me and some comrades actually went to a Medicare for All conference a few months back. And one of the people that were there was Miss Anna Escamani. And one of my comrades actually asked her a question regarding healthcare. And basically one of the questions was, why in the world, like, how can we actually fight against the system when it comes to healthcare, when it's the same members of her own party that are blocking us at every turn when it comes to actually fulfilling the duty that is to us as people to have healthcare as a necessity within this country? And of course, word salad answer, But the thing is, it's like, yes, sometimes they'll say the right things, but when it comes to actually attacking the fundamental of the system, they fall short. Because wage theft is a part of capitalism. Because here's the thing, you have the owner class and you have the workers, also known as the proletariat. And there's always a push and pull against one another. That push and pull being the owners want to make as much money as possible and give as little as possible to the workers. Whereas the workers want to make as much money as possible and give as little labor to the owners. And the problem is like, how do we get rid of this? Well, why not combine the two? This is what socialists and communists are saying. Why not just make the workers the owners of the means of production? So then there's never that push and pull anymore. But the problem is that means that the fruits of the labor are dispersed more equitably among the workers, meaning that a small, tiny little group doesn't have it all. And this is the point, right? I'm not interested in reforming capitalism. The same system that brought my ancestors here in chains and that were the original capital in capitalism, I'm not interested in reforming that. Why would I be interested in reforming slavery as a black man? Why in the world would I, in my right mind, be interested in reforming that? I don't want to reform it. I want to get rid of it. It's the same thing with capitalism. Why are we trying to reform something that puts people in wage slavery? Why are we trying to reform something that actually puts us in a position of constantly being exploited to the point where we are under constant duress? We are reaching the end of Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. You know what some of the biggest issues regarding our mental health is as men? Is affordability in order to be able to live in this godforsaken country. That's one of the biggest things that hits us because we're constantly thinking about how can I provide for my family? How can I provide for my kids? How can I provide for my spouse? Oh, my parents are getting older, but I can't afford to provide for them. It's not even about getting the latest and greatest gadgets or keeping up with the Joneses. Nobody's trying to keep up with the Joneses. People are trying to keep up with the surface of the water so they can breathe air, so that they don't drown. Keeping up with the Joneses, bull crap, that whole talk, that was like back in like the 60s and 70s when wages actually kept up with inflation. We ain't at that period no more where we're trying to keep up with one another. We're just trying to keep our head above water. You see what I mean? And so this is one of the things that I want to put a pin on, because a lot of times people will say, oh, we just got to reform. Reform what? I can reform a pile of poop as much as I can, but that doesn't turn it into chocolate ice cream. Because that's not what it is at its base. Meaning what? You got to throw it out. Anyways. Oh, I wasn't finished with her. Sorry. And let's finish off what she says here.
We're here today to only emphasize the importance of the Fair Labor Standards Act and the National Labor Relations Act, two pieces of landmark policy legislation that have been tried and true as constitutional, but also are the backbone of the American economy. We're here to not only affirm our support for these federal laws, but to further demonstrate to those executives that our workers are not alone. That you have elected officials and influencers and stakeholders from faith-based groups to community groups that are going to be here every step of the way, regardless of how long it takes. And let's be clear, the longevity of these fights is on purpose because they want you to give up. They want you to move on. They want you to say, never mind, I'll just continue on with the status quo. And so it further demonstrates why unions are so important, because in this system we have of just unfettered greed, unfettered corporate greed, and endless amounts of poverty, unions continue to be the balance. Unions and efforts to lift up workers' rights are the balance that we need to counter that unfettered greed.
Hang on. Here, I'm going to sound very radical really quick. I'm going to sound very radical to y'all. When it comes to fighting against the parasite class, I don't want balance. I want it all. Did you hear me? I don't want balance with these people who are parasites. I want it all. If I'm the labor that creates the value, then give me the value of what I create full 100%. No, I don't want to share with these people who are going to be nickeling and diming me while they're sitting here in Orlando, while they're sitting in Isleworth and in Windermere, or they may have a house in West Palm Beach. No, I don't want to share with them. No, because they're not doing the work. We're doing the work. No, they need to. Baby. This is why a lot of people, this is why my channel is being suppressed. Because I do not hold back when it comes to talking about these people who are parasites. My problem with people like Maxwell Frost and Anna Examani is they don't go hard enough. This is my problem with the Democrats. They never go hard enough. They're too piecemeal. They're too milquetoast. They're too weak and watered down. And I want to go beyond unions. I want to go to worker cooperatives. I want workers to own the means of production. Can you imagine if workers actually owned Walt Disney World Company? If we collectively owned it and operated it in a democratic fashion, can you imagine how great of a place of work it would be? I want to share this too, because birds of a feather flock together, and I mean that, because if Disney's willing to do that, have a relationship with these type of companies like that, that means Disney shares in the same thing. I want to share with this sister here. And the video is entitled Disney's Wage Theft. It says Disney wage theft, a $200 million cautionary tale. So let's hear what she has to say.
Disney's case proves that wage theft lawsuits can be big. And on the other hand, for the employers out there, it's a huge cautionary tale. Don't try to dodge wage laws, because the courts, they're not right. At the end of the day, Disney might be the king of fairy tales, but this story didn't have a happily ever after for them. They tried to skip out on paying their workers fairly, and it cost them. It cost them over $200 million. But there is a silver lining. I mean, after all, this is a reminder that justice isn't just for fairy tales. So whether you're a churro seller, a hotel bellman, or just someone working your 9 to 5, remember, know your rights, keep your records, and don't let anyone, even Mickey Mouse, steal your wages. Trust me.
So that's true. Now, here's the thing, right? Fight as much as you can to keep your money for what you earn. At the same time, while we're fighting against them within this rigged system, also try to help change and get ourselves a new system that actually beneficial for all of us. But wage theft really is that big. And so I want to share this as well. So here we have from Working Now and Then. So it talks about wage theft. It says wage theft, the $50 billion crime against workers. I told you it was more. It says in 2019, the total cost of robbery in the country was $482 million with an M. The cost of wage theft was more than 100 times that number. The FBI Uniform Crime Reporting Program recorded 267,988 robberies in 2019. Those robberies cost businesses and the public $482 million in total losses. But wage theft cost workers $50 billion every year. And most of the time, employers get away with it stealing money from their employees. It says, and most of the time. And when people talk about, oh, well, this is, and I understand what the lady was saying about it being a cautionary tale. But the thing is like, how many people get their wages stolen from them and they're not really paying attention, or they don't feel like they have the time, the energy, or the resources to actually pursue fighting against it because they don't want to take that risk of getting fired, then having to look for another job. And especially if you're black or brown, guess what? It's gotten even harder. We'll talk about that in the next segment. And so a lot of times they don't want to take that risk. So they just accept, okay, well, I lost $20 here, $30 there. But that $20 or $30 among 10 workers is between $200 and $300. And then the next week, another $200 or $300. And the next week, another $200 or $300. And so this is one of the biggest parts that a lot of people don't realize, that most wage theft is underreported. And if it's underreported, that means that that number is much higher than we think. And so wage theft is a feature of capitalism. It's not a bug. It's not a broken system. It is the system is designed. It is as it should be. Wage theft, theft in general, is part of the system. It says, what is wage theft? Wage theft means underpaying workers. It can take several forms, including paying less than a minimum wage, withholding overtime pay, or not compensating workers for all of their work hours. Remember, we told them, we showed you guys, they were asking them to come start prep 30 minutes before their shift. Imagine you work at a minimum wage job, but your company asks you to show up 30 minutes before the store opens every morning to prep. What do we just say? Without paying you for that time. Over the course of a year, you log more than 100 unpaid hours of work. That's wage theft. Or let's say you make $15 an hour as a stocker in a warehouse. During busy season, you put in overtime hours, but your employer doesn't pay you the $22.50 per hour rate guaranteed by the law. You've lost out on hundreds of dollars of pay. That's wage theft. Minimum wage violations cost Americans billions. In 2025, federal minimum wage remains at $7.25 an hour. That number has not increased since July of 2009, even though inflation has increased 50% from 2009 to 2025. The end result, federal minimum wage is now a poverty wage according to Economic Policy Institute. Here's the thing, right? And it's something that a lot of people get wrong. And this is also a strike against the Democrats, because when the minimum wage went up in 2009, that was actually passed under George W. Bush, not Barack Obama. Even though Obama was the president, it was passed and it went into effect in 2009, meaning it was passed under the Bush administration. It never passed. It never went up under the Obama administration, never went up under the Biden or Trump administrations. It stayed stagnant. And that is by design, because the corporate parasites that own our politicians on both sides, they actually said, you know what, let's just keep it where it's at, because then we don't have to pay workers more. And that's where we're at now. And I consider that also a form of wage theft, because you're not paying us what is needed to actually live in this country. And says, and millions get paid even less than that of a minimum wage. Minimum wage violations have cost workers billions. More than 50 million Americans were paid less than minimum wage from 2010 to 2021, according to Professor Daniel J. Galvin. That cost them $155 billion in unpaid wages. And wage theft is getting worse. In 2010, workers lost $9.1 billion to minimum wage violations. By 2021, that number grew to $19.8 billion. Wage theft isn't just a problem at small companies. It's also a major issue at some of the largest corporations in the country. Walmart, Bank of America, FedEx, and Wells Fargo have something in common. they all have paid more than $200 million in wage theft penalties. So, overwhelming majority of companies fined for wage theft are large corporations, including many Fortune 500 companies. Home Depot, Uber, Wells Fargo, Amazon all paid more than $16 million in wage theft penalties in 2024 alone, according to Good Jobs First corporate wage theft penalty tracker, with $233 million against the largest offender, the Walt Disney Company. And when major corporations commit wage theft, it's often more subtle than simply withholding pay. Instead, these corporations classify their workers as quote unquote independent contractors instead of employers. That alone can save companies tens of thousands per worker in wages and benefits, all while costing each worker tens of thousands in lost wages. Requiring off-the-clock work is another common form of corporate wage theft. For example, employers cannot require workers to perform job tasks during unpaid meal breaks. They also cannot ask workers to perform unpaid work before or after they clock out. Some states stand out in the battle against wage theft. So they talk about the different states that have fought against wage theft. Says the true cost of wage theft is even higher than $50 billion. Wage theft is more about lost wages. It's about the cost of society when employers don't pay their workers. Wage theft affects far more people than well-known crimes such as bank robberies, convenience store robberies, street and highway robberies, and gas station robberies combined. So this is how bad wage theft is. I showed this graph before, but I want to make sure I showed this again. And this is under what we have today because it's gotten that bad. So here is this. You guys have probably seen this before. But this was as of September 13, 2018. So we're talking about 8 years ago. So on the right side, you have all forms of theft. So robbery, which is 300 billion. I'm sorry, 300, somewhere over 300 million. Then auto theft, burglary, and larceny, right? But then you have minimum wage violations, overtime violations, rest break violations, off the clock violations. By the way, if your employer asks you to come in to a meeting and you don't clock in, or they tell you not to clock in, that's a violation. Even if it's just a meeting, I don't care if it's 15 minutes, I don't care if it's 10 minutes. It's a meeting for work. Therefore, you need to get paid for that meeting. No. You clock in. And if they don't allow you to clock in, you don't go to that meeting. But then people say, but James, I don't want to lose my job. And that's where they got you by the throat. This is why we need to have labor attorneys on speed dial. Like, hey, they're not letting me clock in, and record and document everything. But yes, this is how bad it is. I'm not going to belabor the point, but corporations like Disney, corporations like these third-party restaurants, when it comes to wage theft, it happens here locally, and it should not be allowed whatsoever. If you feel like your wages are being stolen from you, by the way, if you feel like it, it probably is. And even if you don't feel like it is, you probably are still being stolen from. Keep track of everything. Keep a log of exactly when you clock in and clock out. I have to do that myself now, right? I have to start making sure that I log, like clock in and clock out. I think I'm going to start doing that tomorrow when I go to work. But keep just like a list of notes in your phone, something that you can easily print out and log those hours. And then also calculate how much your paycheck would be based on those hours, and then compare and contrast. And if you see any discrepancies, you bring it up. And if they do not address it, then guess what? you may have a labor case on your hands. So this is why we fight against the system, y'all. And when it comes to these companies, they're trash. And this is why we got to keep fighting against this system. But to all the people who are fighting against this battle for wage theft, solidarity with y'all. And make sure to get the surplus value that you have worked so hard for. Don't give them an inch, because they will take a mile. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much to everybody. Let's go into the chats, and we shall go on to the next one. But first, I need to give a shout out and thank you to all the patrons on Patreon. I can't believe I didn't have that open yet. James, bad James. No, please don't give me a spanking. I know some of y'all look at me like, what? Hey, I'm going to be goofy because my birthday is on Monday. I'm going to be goofy all day. We're going to celebrate, y'all. All right, guys. So let's get into the thanking of the patrons on Patreon, and we shall get into the chat. So here's the tiers for the Patreon. Thank you so very much to everybody. Without you guys, I would not have this channel and be able to do this work. So we have Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters. Then we have Comrades, Solidarity, and JB members. It's all new members. Thank you so very much for supporting the channel. You guys have done amazing work and helping me to keep the lights on. I deeply appreciate all of you. And as well, if you guys want to support the channel, you guys do that through super chats, through memberships, or if you guys would like to something that is inconspicuous, I gotta cash out. I don't have PayPal or Venmo anymore because, well, they took it away. So that's what I have now, cash out. But yeah, thank you so very much for supporting the channel. All right, guys, let's get into, let me check the Kick chat to see if we have any gifted subs there. I think we're okay. Yeah, we're okay there. All right, and let's get into Rumble. Rumble in the jumbo. Wait, jumble. Rumble in the jungle. What in the world am I saying? What the heck is he saying? All right, we're good on Rumble. All right, cool beans, jelly bean. All right, let's get into the YouTube chat. Let me see. Yeah, Big Daddy's watching. Nice to have you watching on channel. Thank you so very much. Says the city of tomorrow is one giant tent city. You ain't lying. You ain't lying. Boy, let me tell you, how many of those Disney workers are actually homeless, living in their cars? Or they live in a motel or hotel? Oh my God. There was a movie that I watched. Thank you very much. You just brought this to mind. Thank you, Big Daddy's watching. I went to an event with PSL, Party for Socialism and Liberation. Shout out to PSL here in Orlando, the local chapter. They actually had a movie night. And in the movie night, it was called The Florida Project. Let me see if I can bring up the let's see. Yeah, it's a film from 2017. And I hope you guys get to watch this movie. Hang on, let me see. Okay. Will it allow me? Let me see if I can do the. Okay. Yeah. So let me share this with you guys. This movie will hit you hard, and it puts things into perspective. This is a movie out of 2017 called The Florida Project. Okay. We saw this movie and I didn't know what to expect. This is a local movie out of Florida. In particular, it covers life of the unhoused living in motels on 192 near Disney World. Okay? And one of the people that's acting in the movie is actually a very well-known actor, a star. In fact, he was in a Marvel movie recently. Willem Dafoe is actually in this movie. The Willem Dafoe. And so you see exactly how life is like. And I said this hits home because I have known family members that have actually lived in a motel on 192. And 192 is like right at the edge of where Kissimmee and Orange County, the edge. And so, or Osceola and Orange County. And so Disney's right near Kissimmee. It's still considered Orange County, but it's like right at the edge. And so this movie really shows what life is like. And the problem is how workers are treated and how this reflects the lives of children. And you're mostly following the kids in this movie and their life. And the ending hits you. The ending really hits you. I recommend to anybody and everybody to watch this movie. It's called The Florida Project. I will put in the link for you guys. I'm not sure if it's free. It might be free. I wonder if it's free on YouTube. Let me see. I wonder if it's free. If it's free, then it's an A24 movie. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna play the trailer because I don't want to get copyright, but I will put in the chat the link to the trailer, and if you guys want to watch it, you guys can find it and watch it. I'm pretty sure there's places where they actually have it, so you don't got to pay anything, but I don't know where those sources are. But watch that movie, please, because it really shows what life is like living in poverty here in Orlando, especially in the tourist area. So you guys go ahead and give that a watch. Edward says, it's so messed up that these rich owners are always stealing money from poor workers. Worker cooperatives is the answer to prevent wage theft, since workers also are management. Yeah. And imagine you be able to vote who your managers are, right? Bryce, actually, I'm going to save this for the next segment, Bryce, and then I'll read that, okay? Because that goes into what we're going to talk about next. Cobra Commander says, I can't stand that stuff. It doesn't cost the business a dime. Oh, sorry. It doesn't cost the business a dime. What do I know? I got fired from Goodwill a few years back for giving a homeless man a tent. By the way, Goodwill and Salvation Army, they are trash. Do not donate your clothes, food, or money or anything like that to Goodwill or Salvation Army. They're part of the nonprofit industrial complex that are designed just to keep the people at the top, their palms greased, and that's pretty much it. They're awful. This is why I do not shop there. I do not donate there. No. Mm-mm. John says, "Don't help Mr. Wendell." Let me see. Bryce says, "Also using it and trying to call it your work when you haven't put pencil to paper lacks any soul that would come from an artist. It also lacks character." Yeah. Are you talking about AI? Yeah. Nika says, "Years of unpaid work. This is why I don't pay money to Disney." Unfortunately, the problem is there's no ethical consumption in capitalism. But if you can get around, paying any money to them, hey. Um, Big Daddy says managers just following orders. And management needs to realize that they are workers just like us, and they need to have solidarity. You know what I mean? It's just that's the bad part about the whole thing. Let me see. Jacqueline says that there's 2.5 hours a week of unpaid work, which is over 100 hours a year of unpaid work. Someone brainier than me will have to do the price size calculations. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of unpaid work, right? That's what 2.5 weeks worth of the work that you're not getting paid for if you're full time. Yes, absolutely. The long commutes are also uncompensated time. Maybe that's the radical in me, but I think you should get paid for the commute to work too. But what do I know? Oh man. All right. Make sure I haven't missed anybody in particular. So I got to move on. Sela says, "Correct, JB. Especially consider the Dems and Republicans gave these same corporations access to our community to be taken advantage of economically." Yes, yes. This is why I love my audience. You guys are so brilliant that you guys actually make me better. I appreciate it. Let me see. Oh, Roger says, "JB, I told you I got a Florida CBI to tax the rich that will reach and pass 66% threshold." Thank you very much for that. And then we have Sean says, "When will you last work at Universal Orlando? Did similar crap like this happen?" It happens every year. It happens all the time. I actually, my first job, my very first job ever was a busser at Universal Orlando. I got hired the day I turned 16. And then also I have worked at a third party restaurant in my early 20s at Universal Orlando City Walk. So I know what it's like to be on both sides, to be an actual employee of the company and be an employee of the third party vendor. And yes, wage stuff happens on both sides. Rod, oh, thank you very much for this, Roger, because I've been wanting to do this, but you did it for me anyway. Thank you. He says, if Disney were a worker cooperative, its approximately 12.4 billion annual profits divided equally among its 231,000 employees would yield about 53,679 per member. This dividend would be paid in addition to regular wages, effectively doubling the average cast member's income. And yet we want to give people like Bob Iger like millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to run the company. Mary Ploplin says, "Aloha, JB. Aloha to you." Vic Adams says, "I saw this movie." Ooh, yes. It says funny and sad. Oh, yeah, yeah. It's funny. You'll laugh, but then you'll also cry. Yep, absolutely, guys. Um, Roger said, thank you very much for the super chat, Roger. He said 3,000, 4,000, 6,000, 10,000 different instances. New York Attorney General James got back for me from income theft Uber committed over the years. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the amount of money that gets stolen from workers, man. And here's the crazy thing. You shouldn't have to do all that because you shouldn't have your wages stolen in the first place. My goodness. All right. So I am way over time. Let's continue going. And shout out to you, Court Lord, for joining in. Let's get into the next subject where we talk about here. Now we're going to be doing a shift. We're going to be talking about workers and jobs. We talked about it from a local perspective. Now we're going to be going nationally. Let's go into this. So now we're going to be talking about jobs, AI, and racism. So we're talking about this, and we gotta have a conversation, especially about this AI, because it's racist AI. And if you guys look closely at the code, you'll see the word bias all up in the code. Racist AI. In a system built by white supremacy, if white supremacy also formulated an AI, then that AI would also implement white supremacist policies. AI really is just an amalgamation right now of different facts and figures that are basically inputted from whoever programs it. And if that programmer has a particular bias, well, it will be reflective within the AI. It is not going to be neutral. Well, this also is indicative of what's happening within job searches, especially ones that use AI. Welcome to the show, everybody. We're going to be talking about this because this is really deeply important. This is actually a study out of Stanford that actually talks about AI use within job searches, especially when it comes to applying for jobs. And so I want to share this with you guys, because this is absolutely important that we see how the system operates and how they're going to be using AI really to discriminate against each and every one of us, especially if we have a little extra melanin in our skin. It says this is out of the Stanford University Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence. AI hiring tools can yield racial bias and systemic rejection. So let's tune in. It says the first large-scale study of hiring algorithms in the wild finds concerning patterns to how systems reject candidates. Its graduation season in the class of 2026 is entering one of the toughest labor markets in years. Entry-level hiring has slowed. At the same time, AI tools have made it easier than ever for job seekers to fire off applications. Together, fewer jobs and more applications mean companies are now seeing nearly 3 times as many applicants for entry-level positions as in 2022. AI is changing not just if firms hire, but how they hire. 90% of US employers use AI screening tools to sort and rank job seekers, with most relying on the same few third-party vendors. When one algorithm influences many employers, what is the impact on job seekers? It says we follow 3.4 million people who submit 4 million job applications to 1,700 job postings across 150 employers in 11 industry sectors. Each job application was assessed by an AI hiring tool built by a single third-party vendor. Our new paper offers a rare look inside the black box of algorithmic hiring, showing that these tools increase racial bias and shut the same people out of jobs everywhere they apply. So let's take a look here. Let me make sure that I enlarge this. I'm going to make sure that everybody can see. Can you guys see? I hope so. So it says job 1 Job 1, job 2, job 3, right? It says vendor uses AI to assess applications. So job 1 and 2, so job 2, that person in blue applies job 1 and job 2. And then they go to vendor uses AI applications. But then only the blue continues to job 1. And then the blue also continues to job 2. And then companies who decide to move on and who hires. So, initial applications, companies send the application to vendor. Vendor recommends 50% of applicants, and then companies decide who moves on to do human interviews. So let me make sure this is big enough so everybody can read along with me. Now, it says, we find substantial evidence of racial disparities in AI-based candidate screening. To measure adverse impact, we apply the EEOC's 4/5 rule, which flags a position when one group is recommended at less than 80% of the rate of the most recommended group, the relevant U.S. employment law, or Title VII. We recovered that 26% of Black applicants and 15% of Asian applicants applied to positions where the AI system discriminated against their racial group. To put this in perspective, if the AI had recommended Black and Asian candidates at the same rate as it recommended the most favored group, typically white applicants, 40,000 more of their applications would have advanced to the next stage of hiring. So AI is not race neutral. What you put into it is what it puts out. AI it recognizes trends, and it goes, oh, you prefer white applicants? Okay, we're going to start sending you more white applicants. We're not going to send you Black applicants because you tend to prefer white applicants. So we're going to do it based on that. And so that's how the algorithm works, because their bias is influenced into the AI system. It's no different than when you're watching a video on YouTube. Let's say, like for instance, I love reaction videos, especially reaction videos when it comes to like movies and TV shows. I love stuff like that. Guess what I get a lot of in my feed? Reaction videos. Reaction to Marvel movies, reaction to TV shows, like somebody like a Gen Z reacting to Thundercats for the first time, right? Or it could be a person reacting to hip hop music the first time, or different music that they've never heard before, and they're a completely different generation. Like these things happen, right? But it's because of what I typically watch. Or also I get a lot of videos in my feed about Black issues. And so I'll get Black issues all the time. And I may even say, hey, did you see this video? They're like, I've never heard of that video. And they have like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million views. But because it's not in their algorithm, they're not actually looking for things related to that. It doesn't show them that, so they have no idea. There are some channels that I'm discovering creators that they have millions of subs, and I'm like, I never heard of this person before in my life. I don't know who that is. But then you find out, well, that's an area of the internet you just don't frequent, so you don't know. Because the AI or the algorithm does not recommend it to me because I don't search for it. And people who are in tech know exactly what I'm talking about. They can probably explain it way better than I can. But let's continue on. Because how adverse impact is measured matters. The vendors we study screens applicants for many different positions across many employers. If we pool all of these recommendations together, treating the vendor as one giant hiring process, we don't find adverse impact. we look at each position separately, as it would be typical in an evaluation of adverse impact. Then we expose the adverse impact in many positions. For example, imagine the AI tool frequently recommends Black applicants for warehouse jobs, but rarely recommends them for finance jobs. If we were to average all the jobs together, those two patterns would cancel each other out, and it would seem like there is no discrimination. The big picture average hides the real discrimination happening job by job. So it says positions with adverse impact. And so Black is at 10.6%, Asian is at 5.3%. Adverse impact. So you see applicants and applications, and then shortfall in recommendations. So take a look at that. Applications and shortfall. So Asian applicants is 115,000, and the shortfall is 29,000. Applications and Black is 39,000, but the shortfall is 11,000. And the lowest are Hispanic and white. Now, it says algorithm monocultures can give rise to systemic rejection. We also study new concern brought by the shared dependence on a single hiring vendor. Our prior work, we theorized that algorithmic monocultures, which many employers came to rely on, the same algorithmic recommendations could lead to some people being shut out from jobs. Using our largest data set of real hiring AI recommendations, we test our hypothesis. We find that people who submit multiple applications to positions screened by the same algorithmic hiring vendor are more likely to be rejected from every position to which they apply than would be true if the companies made decisions statistically independently from one another. 10% of applicants who submit 4 applications are rejected from all of the places to which they apply. So, to put it in layman's terms, let's say I apply to 4 completely different jobs, but they all use the same AI tool for their applications, because we live in a capitalism, and in capitalism, monopoly is the name of the game. So yeah, you apply to all these different jobs, but all these different jobs are only pulling from a pool of a few applications that only exist for them to use. And so let's say there's 2 or 3. Well, guess what? A bunch of them are going to be using one of them. And so that one also sees where you apply at these different companies, and it sees your same name pop up with your same social security popping up and same number and email address, and they go, hey, you know what? We rejected him for this. We rejected him for that. So guess what? Let's start rejecting them all across the board. And so you can apply for 10, 15, 20 jobs, and you'll get canceled, or you'll get no callbacks, no answers from every single one of them, or rejection from all of them, but without realizing that they all use the same AI algorithmic tool to assess you. And so the companies aren't assessing you. It's the AI algorithm that's assessing you. And they're all using the exact same one. And so they're going to toss you out every single time. And it impacts Black and Asian way more than it does anybody else. And this is part and parcel why in capitalism, monopolies are damaging. Please do not come in my comments and start screaming at me about, oh, capitalism, it breeds innovation, competition. No, it doesn't. It breeds monopolization and gets rid of the competition. Because then guess what? Managers aren't going through all those applications. You want to know why they're not going through all those applications? Because the upper people at the top, they want those managers to do more work. So they're going to have AI to look over all those applications instead. Because then that means that they can have their managers do more work, which means that they can spend less money on hours, which means that they're saving more money for profits for their more profits for their dividend checks. Because ultimately, they don't want to actually get people who are going to be reading through applications. And so now you literally have to find keywords just through a job posting, so that you have to modify your resume so that when they actually see your resume, oh, the keywords are in there. Okay, well, yeah, that person probably will be good at the job. But then once you get the keywords, and that doesn't mean you're actually the best person for the job. It just means that you were able to find the keywords and you just put it in your resume. But then they also base it on if you put your race in the application. I'm getting to the point where I don't even want to put my race in the application. Or lie. Hell, I'm 1% Welsh anyway. I might as well embrace that white side. I'm just really tan. But that's the crazy part, right? It shouldn't be this way. But because we're living in capitalism, it should be this way. You know what I mean? Let's continue on. As 10% of applicants who submit for applications are rejected from the places to which they apply. Our research also found that the pattern does not appear to be the case in other circumstances. We analyzed data from the largest prior study of hiring decisions, which sent 83,000 applications to 108 Fortune 500 firms during the same time period as our study, and did not focus on whether AI was used to make decisions. We found out that the rate of which applicants were rejected from every firm they applied to in this data was no higher than what you expect from each company decided independently of others. This suggests concentration matters. A single hiring vendor comes to dominate screening for an industry. It may be more likely that the candidate are shut out. So it talks about observed and baseline here, systemic rejection rate. And so as we find, applicants are more likely to be rejected from every position they apply than to them would be predicted by the baseline of each position, making statistically independent decisions. And so I'm going to share this with you guys in the chat because I think this is absolutely important. But ultimately, it just shows that companies are not wanting to actually look through applications anymore. Part of it is because they want to save more money so that they won't have to pay hiring managers much or really have hiring managers. But at the same time, at what cost? At cost to many of us who are applying for jobs. And this is why so many of us are going, months and months, maybe even up to a couple of years without jobs because we're not being hired. So this really, in conjunction with the prior segment, talking about wage theft, it's like people don't want to leave their jobs now because, well, what choice do they have? Because they know that if they leave their jobs, then it's going to be an uphill battle just to find another one. And so a lot of times people end up just taking whatever exploitation abuse that they get from their job because they're like, at least I still get a paycheck. It may not be much, but at least I get something. And so we start to accept even fewer crumbs than we did before. And that's what was sad, right? So I think it's important that we always continue to, and I'm not a fan of AI, but I also am not under the impression that it's going to go away. We're in a new age now. I just think that we should have a system where AI actually assists us and not replaces us. The problem is, because of who owns this system, they want to replace us. Let me share this as well. There is a article out of U.S. News and World Report that I want to share as well with you guys, because it talks about how a lot of employers are also not even hiring. So it says many employers are posting jobs but not actually hiring. About a third of job openings went unfilled in April. So let's look here. So it says hiring picked up. 172,000 new jobs were created in May, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. On top of 179,000 job gain in April, the government reported there were 7.6 million open positions as of April, an increase of 731,000 from the prior month. But the picture isn't as rosy as the open positions figure suggests, since many of those are going unfilled. Why? Hiring for April stood at just 5.1 million, leaving a gap of 2.5 million unfilled jobs, equal to about 33% of openings. That gap between openings and hiring was drastically smaller, 2 to 4% from 2010 to 2019, but it widened during the pandemic and hasn't closed back up. Why? Let's continue on. It says May's job report offers another positive headline number, but underlying measures tell us it's less celebratory story for Americans. So although job growth has returned and the unemployment rate remains stable, compared with just a few years ago, the growing share of Americans want work but have stopped searching or are stuck with part-time hours they didn't choose. And for those who do find themselves out of work, longer spells of unemployment are becoming the norm and remain above pre-pandemic levels. So they're trying to say, well, we just need to do better on our resumes and go to small firms. But let's be real. Let's talk about the real reason. I'm going to give you all the real reason as to why employers are not actually hiring more, even though they have all these listings there. It is, how can I put it? It is the facade that, oh, well, there's jobs out there. You just need to try harder. No, there's not jobs out there. There's not. In very few sectors. Now, you can point to some and say, hey, there's jobs opening here, but it's not really that many. Most employers just want to look good on their sheets saying, oh, we're hiring, but in reality, they're not. It's also good for the present administration to say, oh, well, they're looking for all these jobs, and all these jobs are available for people. Oh, nobody wants to work anymore. Why is it that when they say nobody wants to work anymore, but a lot of these jobs don't want to hire anymore? You know why they don't want to hire? Because that means they want to operate with skeleton crews. What does that mean? That means they want to hire as little people as possible to be able to do the job that a full crew could do. And so let's say, for instance, you work in a restaurant and it takes 15 people to operate that restaurant. If they can get away with operating the restaurant with just 10, then guess what? They're going to make sure that they stay at that minimum level, because that extra 5 people would be less profit for the people at the top. And so they do this on purpose, but then they'll always have a job posting for 5 people in order to be able to get a job. And this also creates uneasiness among the other workers, because what happens if they decide, man, screw this, I'm not going to be dealing with this. You guys aren't paying us enough and things are, bad. You guys are overworking us and we can't take this anymore. Then the company gets to go bye, because they have 50 people that have already put in applications for those 5 positions that they didn't want to fill, that they didn't intend on filling. So then when that one person that and the skeleton crew leaves, guess what? They swap in with a new person. That's what they do. And then they'll still keep it at 10 because they will never fill the 5 positions that they need in order to operate the restaurant fully, because they want to keep those dividend checks up higher. It's about greed, it's about selfishness, and it's about keeping your work-life balance out of sync and keeping their life in balance in this huge abundance of life, where they can spend all this time, on vacations and trips and having, bigger houses and extra rooms and nicer cars and, all these different things. Whereas you are working day in and day out, and you can barely survive and keep your head above water. You're trying to figure out how you're going to pay your light bill, because most of your money already went to rent. And then you're overworked because guess what? Well, they're operating with a skeleton crew. And yet they still have that 5 openings that's out there. They posted on Indeed and LinkedIn and Monster.com, but they're not hiring anybody because they never intended on. That's how they work. And so some people go, well, all these companies, they're hiring. No, they're not. They're not. I just got hired at a job a couple months ago. Nobody is calling me back. I got one call back, and guess what? I took it off. I took off. I was just like, okay, fine, give me a job, because I need it. But we're going months. I started looking for a job 6 months after my transplant. I started looking for a job in October. I didn't get one till a couple months ago. And so when people say, oh, well, you just got to work harder and start looking for a job and be more savvy. No, you don't. And now you include the AI algorithm and being black or brown on top of it. It actually exacerbates the problem. So I can dust off and rearrange my resume all I want. I can do all these different little things that they suggest us to do. But ultimately, if the greed and the system that exacerbates and encourages this greed continues, we're going to be constantly under duress. And then we accept whatever exploitation and starvation wages that they push our way, because at least we got something. You'll own nothing and be happy. This is why this is an amalgamation of all these different things. By the way, Black unemployment is up to 7.5%. A lot of people talk about the unemployment numbers. Black unemployment is up to 7.5%. It's almost double what the average unemployment rate is. What does that tell you? Oh my God, DEI. Shut the hell up. And so this is why I do what I do. This is why I talk about what I talk about. And I think it's important that we consistently talk as much as we possibly can and let people know this is why we got to organize. By organize, I'm not talking about, going with a particular party or, just marching with signs, we shall overcome. No, we way past that. There's more action that needs to be done. But for those of you who are looking for a job, just keep grinding. And also, if you do have a job and you know of, or if you have the ability to help somebody get hired, especially people who are trying to do what they possibly can just to keep their head above water, look out for them. And those of you who do get help, make sure that you dot your I's and you cross your T's, and you make sure that you do the best you can at that job so that the person who helped you get hired doesn't look stupid. Because then that could be putting them at risk. But AI within the capitalist system, it's not good for us. Because it's just there to lock us out, especially those of us with more melanin in our skin. All right, go ahead and like the stream. Thank you so much. We're going to be moving on into the last segment. Let me see here. Yep, we're good there. All right. Oh, let me put the link to that study in the chat so you guys can also share it among your friends and family, and let them know like what's actually going on in these streets. And let's check to see if we have any Rumble rants. All right, we're good on Rumble. All right. Okie dokie, Smokey. So I know I started something. Okay, this is from Bryce. Thank you so much, Bryce. He said, AI isn't a solution. My thoughts is that this is counterproductive. I usually have to end up editing it anyways to something of my liking. I use it, but sparingly. Yeah. I use AI? Yes. But what do I use it for? I use it for, either upscaling the images for my thumbnails. Sometimes if it's hard for me to find images, then I use AI to get an image for my thumbnail. Or if I do have questions or need guidance on something, I do use AI to ask questions, but I don't use the United States AI tools. I use Chinese. I use DeepSeek. I don't use Grok. I try not to use Google, even though it comes with every single search. And I don't use ChatGPT. Like, screw them. So that's pretty much it, right? I try to use it as little as possible. If I do use it, it's to assist me, not replace me. So that's pretty much what I do. But a lot of the ideas that I have come from here, not from AI. Let's get into the rest of the chat here. Let me see. Oh, you guys were really deep in the conversation on here. Good question. Big Daddy says, when will AI come for the CEOs? That's what I'm saying. We can go without them. All they do really is look at numbers and, spreadsheets. Why in the world aren't their jobs being replaced? Workers want to know. Nika says this new age is far more corrupt and dumber than what older generations had. The crazy part is older generations also had to deal with automation in their day too. There's a lot of things that, automation has, taken out their abilities as well. Like how many, this is a very drastic example, but how many people who, built horse carriages, how many of them went out of job when they started building cars? When Henry Ford built the Model T, right? Or when we started having a lot of trolleys, right? We had mass public transit in the form of trolleys. How many of those in the cities, especially, we didn't have really, horses, horse-drawn carriages. And then, when the trucks and pickup trucks were being built, you really didn't need horse-drawn carriages for things like that anymore. So that phased out. But that's just an extreme example. But automation, it has done a lot in that regard. Like, for instance, if I worked at a magazine press, all these magazine companies that started putting their articles online, that automated me out of a job. Because there's no job for me for magazine press anymore. Right? You see, Cobra Commander says, well, it's going to be funny, JB. They're going to keep pushing it, and then we can't afford to buy their products anymore. They will act shocked. Yeah. Jacqueline says, do you think you could be boycotted by employers because of your political beliefs? Oh, well, that's a good question. It depends. Let me see. Killier Grigor, it's good to see you. It says, hence the switch to the CBDC and allowance if you comply. Sela says they're doing this to create a fake need for employees and further automating jobs instead of hiring humans. Yeah, definitely. Nika says fast fashion food, mass food production, war profiteers using a lot of non-renewable oil and stuff will not be sustainable. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Roger says, James, I'm tired of trying to fight our way into spaces we are not wanted. They don't want us as customers. They don't want us to share the workplace with us. Y'all don't want us in your neighborhood. He said, fine, Freeman, we need to stop running from our hoods and rebuild our own hoods into neighborhoods. Boycott them out of business, take it over, establish Freeman-owned worker consumer agricultural co-ops. It's hard when they own the government. They own the government, so they're going to keep that. They're going to keep that incongruency in place. That's why the system needs to be completely dismantled and rebuilt. Sheila says, look at our local supermarkets that have turned self-checkout, camera surveillance within the entire store, and now personal shoppers to make sure they don't need to maintain stock on shelves. Yeah. Yep. This is why whenever I go to a store, I make it my business to not use self-checkout. I will go up to a cashier and I will use them because I want that job to stay there. I do not. Nope. Y'all, look, if y'all want me to check out food, then y'all need to pay me. You know what I mean? Y'all need to pay me to do that. I'm not checking out my own food. Nika says, I'm having to work with disability service people who will get me a guaranteed job since Indeed and others have Cloudflare blocking my access to them. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. Like, for instance, Indeed, LinkedIn is worthless. It is worthless. Like, don't even bother with LinkedIn. They're designed to keep you unemployed so that you constantly need them. I do not like that. See, Bryce said, I lost my job because of AI. I rejected it. I got pipped. I worked there for almost 9 years, and new crew coming in floating AI said my work was bad there. Wow. Edward says AI stifles creativity and destroys jobs. Wow, man. I'm so sorry, Bryce. Man, that sucks. Mary Ploppin says DeepSeek puts them all to shame. Yeah, that's why I use DeepSeek. Plus, it's less evasive on the environment. You see, Roger Meadows said, thank you for this. He says, go higher. CEOs answer to board of directors who are appointees of shareholders. Yeah. These shareholders are also a lot of times employers who have built up their profits from workers, and then they buy shares in another company so that they can get dividends. Roger says public banks can encourage the expansion of the cooperative economy by offering loans to startup co-ops at an interest rate lower than that's what's offered to start up traditional businesses out of all co-ops, even lower for worker cooperatives. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Bryce says, I missed the pay, JB, for real, for real. Anything to cut the cost, though, huh? Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I'm glad you are, but you shouldn't have had to go through that. Thank you. All right. So let's get into the final subject. I want to get into this. I'm going to go international now. So, of course, we're going to be going into, of course, we talked about wages being stolen. Now we're talking about AI job. We talked about AI jobs and racism. Now we're getting to you get nothing. And what is this? You get nothing. Well, they left empty-handed. Let's get into this. Trump's big mouth made it so that JD Vance left empty-handed and didn't have nothing. And it's hilarious because now the Strait of Hormuz is closed once again because of Trump and his big fat mouth. And don't forget also Benjamin Netanyahu's genocidal ass wanted to keep at war with Lebanon. So I want to go into this because this was a interesting turn of events that is taking place. And there is this situation that has happened where Donald Trump essentially threatened the lives of the Iranian delegation that was supposed to negotiate the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Let's get into this because I think this is very important. Ah, boy. And then we'll see how JD Vance basically walked away empty-handed. Let's go.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. I just spoke with President Trump for more than 20 minutes, and he gave some new insight and reaction about the ongoing talks that are taking place in Switzerland and the threats coming from the Iranian regime. President Trump telling Fox News that the U.S. may take over the strait in the future if they have to and collect tolls. The president described this as the United States being the guardian angel of the Strait of Hormuz and the Middle East. And the
more like a demon. Wait, how are you going to take over another country and then take over their waterway? See, this is the type of stuff. This is the type of stuff that got us in this situation in the first place. I don't know about y'all, but I'm sick and tired of this. Because why in the world are we actually doing this? So what? So that Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, and all these big corporations can have a little bit more, a bigger slice of the pie. They can have a bigger slice of the oil that comes out of a country that does not belong to them. The oil that's not even under their feet. It's under the Iranian people's feet. Why are we trying to take their stuff? Because the United States, look, let me say this out loud for everybody to hear. The United States government, which is being controlled by big corporations, are thieves. They're thieves. They're criminals. Taking what does not belong to them. Israel and the United States are two birds of a feather. That's why they flock together. You know why Lebanon keeps fighting against Israel? And you know why Iran keeps fighting against Israel? Because Israel keeps trying to take other people's shit. You know who else does that? The United States. They keep trying to take other people's shit. Go ahead, look it up. Coups and sanctions and blockades. For decades upon decades, the United States has been doing this. Because they do not want anybody else to have anything else, because they want to own it all. The whole mustache twirling villain that's always focused on world domination, that's the United States, dog. That's why we're in this mess. We are in a country that is run by supervillains. And I'm not talking about the president of the United States. I'm talking about people who are above them. And I say them as in Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, Reagan, Carter, all of them. They are the employees of the people at the top. And so people want to talk about, oh my goodness, well, they're a horrible regime, and they're doing all these horrible things to people, when in reality, the quote's coming from inside the house. Guardian angel, my ass. Trying to take people's stuff away from them. Who started the war first? Get the heck out of here with that mess. Who does Don Tragic Juan think he is?
And the president said ultimately that would involve the U.S. taking 20% of the oil that passes through the strait. Remember, this comes in reaction to the Iranians saying they will close the Strait of Hormuz in response to Israeli strikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon. President Trump tells Fox News he spoke with Iranian officials overnight and said, you close it and you won't have a country. He went on to tell these officials, you won't even make it back to your effing country.
That sounds like a threat. That sounds like, okay, negotiations. Cut. Let's go. Pack it up. We gotta go. Nah, there's no. Look, I'm gonna tell you right now. Iran does not negotiate with terrorists. Mm-hmm. You're making threats against them for stuff that they own. Who owns the Strait of Hormuz? Iran. At least they own the 12 miles out of their coast. Who owns the oil under their feet? Iran. So why are you going to talk about, oh, we're going to take what belongs to you? No. reminds me of, you ever have toddlers around you or very little kids like 5, 6 years old, and they're playing with somebody else's toy, and that little kid wants to take their toy back, and they take that toy back, and the little toddler goes, no, he won't let me play with it. And I'm like, well, whose toy is it? It's theirs, but he won't let me play with it. And that's when I go, well, it's their toy. But then they get mad because somebody won't let them play with something that's not theirs. This is toddler behavior. Because you won't play nice, and now you're mad that they took their toy away. You're mad at them because they set a boundary. You know who gets mad at people for setting boundaries? Abusers do. Serial abusers do not like when you set boundaries. Narcissistic people who have issues with control, they are the ones that do not like when you set boundaries. Guess what? Geopolitically, Iran set a boundary and the United States crossed it. And guess who enforced that boundary? Iran did. And so now, because Iran set that boundary, now you have an orange toddler having a hissy fit and threatening to unalive the entire delegation as well as destroy an entire sovereign country. Who the fuck does he think he is? Oh, I'm sorry. Why should I ask that question? He's the president of the United States. Where have they all been doing this entire time? It's just they clean it up a little bit nicer than others. That's the only difference. Ever since 1953, I'm sorry, not 1953, but ever since the Iranian Revolution, the United States has been trying to get that control back. And they haven't been able to. Let's continue on. My God, this dude is.
Now, earlier today, Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian said this about Iranian enrichment of uranium. The president also reacting to that. Take a listen.
We will not give up our right to enrichment, and they, too, will be forced to accept it. You all know what the so-called President of the United States was saying. He had made a complete 100-degree turn. He was saying that Iran must surrender unconditionally. Iran has no right to do this. It has no right to do that.
President Trump, during our call, responded directly to those comments by Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. President Trump told Fox News he better watch his mouth, he better shape up, or we'll take over the rest of the country. And so clearly the president reacting directly to these comments from Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian. And also President Trump talked about the broader memorandum of understanding, indicating this is just a ceasefire extension. This is not the final deal with the Iranian regime. And the president says he holds the cards and maintains a variety of options if the Iranians don't make these serious commitments at the negotiating table. He said, I have a 60-day option and I can do whatever I want after that option. So again, President Trump leaving a variety of considerations on the table and says that the United States could become the guardian angel of the Strait of Hormuz and collect tolls itself while taking oil, around 20%, the president says. As it relates to oil, President Trump also said that 19 million barrels of crude oil exited the Persian Gulf yesterday as a result of this memorandum of understanding with the Iranians. Guys?
So we could be a guardian angel just like we were over Hawaii? Be a guardian angel just like we were over Puerto Rico? Guardian angel just like we were over Samoa? Guardian angel like we were for Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Korea, Chile, Bolivia, Venezuela, Japan. Is that where we're at now? Guardian Angel. So because of that, Don Tragic Juan, he essentially just shut the door. He shut the door. So let's get into this. This is out of Drop Site News. And let's watch, because I'd rather get his voice in this entire thing. So I'm going to be reading for you guys the captions so you guys can hear what he says. So let's be clear. It has a reason, but it's now not the time for me to explain it here. Naturally, we entered the hall at that time and started our discussions. Well, the discussions were going well, and there wasn't any issue. We were almost at the end of the discussions, about to move into the second part. When I realized that during the part where we were talking, Trump had made a very severe and threatening remarks towards the negotiating team, our president, and even about attacking our land. Right there, I told Mr. Vance, we are here negotiating, and we signed the first clause here is that there should be no threats or force. But today, your president made threats and used force. Know this, we never negotiate under threats and force. We ended the negotiations and left the meeting. We didn't return to the meeting again. And even when they followed up to arrange a meeting with the American delegation in the presence of mediators, we didn't accept it. We left the meeting, but the Honorable Prime Minister of Pakistan and Mr. Asif al-Zarari were mediators, along with the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Qatar, came to me and we talked together. They had some points and we said we would talk with them, but their opinion was that in any case, we should bring this phase to a conclusion. We said we would talk with you, but for now, we won't have any discussions with the American delegation. So, of course, the discussions that had taken place over 80 minutes after it became clear that this had happened, we summarized them. The summary was the same statement that our two mediators, Qatar and Pakistan, issued. So Trump and his big, fat, ugly mouth decided to end negotiations because of them. Really what happened was that under their negotiations that Israel was not to touch Lebanon. Israel said, we don't give a damn. We're going to touch Lebanon anyway. And guess what? They said, we need to stop this. And they were still in the middle of negotiating when then Trump decided to open his big fat mouth and make a threat. Guess what happens when that threat? They said, all right, we're closing this book up. We're done. We're out. Let me ask you something. Do you respond well to threats when you're negotiating something? Do you respond to threats very well? I wouldn't expect you would. I sure as hell wouldn't. So if you're going to be threatening not only my life, but the life of my countrymen, Oh, it's over. It's over. And they do not realize the overwhelming mist of degradation that they spread throughout the world by causing the breakdown of these negotiations. Does Donald Trump realize what he just did? You fool. You completely, under the direction of your masters, you have torn apart what future of the American people have under having somewhat of a normalized life. So now, the longer we go with the Strait of Hormuz closed, guess what? The worse things get for us economically. You had just signed a deletion warrant for the Republican Party in 2026 and 2028. And the crazy part is, I don't know, maybe the Democrats would have pulled something like this. I don't think so. I think Democrats probably would have been more tame. But because of Israel being that mean attack dog, that rabid attack dog, well, now it's over. And like I said it last time, I'll say it again. Iran has been the adult in the room. Let's take a look here. This is out of The Guardian. It says U.S.-Iran talks strain as Trump threats spark Iranian walkout. Talks expected to continue for the rest of the week despite disruption caused by U.S. President's threat to bomb Iran and kidnap negotiating team. It says high-stakes talks between the U.S. and Iran are expected to continue for the rest of the weekend in Switzerland. After a tense start, the Iranian negotiators walk out in protest at a stream of threats issued by Donald Trump on social media. The U.S. president had threatened to bomb Iran, even kidnap the Iranian negotiating team unless the Strait of Hormuz was reopened, forcing mediators Qatar and Pakistan to continue negotiations in the background. Iranian state media said talks had entered a difficult phase and recessed after the publication of an insulting message by the U.S. president. It also said the Iranian delegation met Qatari mediators and then left the negotiating site. It says, but high-level negotiations continued before concluding in the early hours of Monday, with Pakistan and Qatar saying technical talks between the two sides will continue for the rest of the week. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, praised Pakistan and Qatar for their mediation on early Monday, saying that they delivered major progress. A joint statement from Qatar and Pakistan said that the U.S. and Iran agreed to set up a communication line to avoid incidences in the Strait of Hormuz and to set up a deconfliction cell with Lebanon's government to ensure the adherence of the termination of military operations in Lebanon. In its message, Araghchi said that the first real test of the understandings reached would be this deconfliction method created due to the fighting between Israel and the Iranian-backed militia Hezbollah in Lebanon. Iran and the U.S. last week signed a memorandum of understanding designed to lift the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, leading to a 60-day of talks on Iran's civil nuclear program. Trump's stream of aggressive threats on social media and TV interviews filtered across the Atlantic to the negotiating site, causing anger among the Iranian negotiating team, who said they represented an unacceptable threat to their personal safety. They pointed to a memorandum signed by Trump last week, including a non-aggression pact. So this is crazy. And it's like no real, like, why they send JD Vance? Probably because he's more artful in the way he can speak. But Donald Trump is just like some wannabe gangster. You know, that's the thing I see. Like, he's just some wannabe gangster, man. And this is going to continue to blow up in the American people's face. Necessarily the face, our faces. I'm sorry, the American people's face, not necessarily the Iranian people's face. So, you know, Iran is dealing with a lot right now. And I think it's pretty indicative of why they're so cautious, because there was a statement by former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, where he actually talked about how they smuggled technology into Iran. So I can see exactly why they are the way they are. Being very touchy. Yeah, when you've been abused for so long, you tend to get touchy. Here's what Naftali Bennett said.
What happens every time there's a protest? They turn off the internet, and then there's no communications. So what I had started was a process of acquiring and smuggling into Iran tens of thousands of Starlink receptors that would allow continuity of the internet and social networks when they turn it off, and would allow the protests to coordinate and ultimately topple. Unfortunately, the current incompetent Israeli government stopped doing that. Like,
okay, first of all, we talked about the shutting the internet off. Shutting the internet off wasn't as a means to be against the people in Iran. Shutting off the internet, and it's no different than when you know an intruder's about to come in and then you lock the doors. Are you imprisoning yourself, or are you trying to safeguard your people on the inside? So to the United States and Israel, they're like, oh my God, this is against the Iranian people, when in reality, it's just an excuse so that they can get access inside of Iran to further try to topple their government, their sovereign government. Remember, and people, y'all can argue with me in the chat all if you want, but Iran is a democratic government. They have a president. They have members and ministers that are part of their government that is elected. And people talk about, well, they have an Ayatollah, they have a supreme leader, and it's like, yeah, that's the religious leader. Nobody cries about the Pope in Italy. And yet people cry about the Ayatollah in Iran. Just look at them like the Pope, but for Muslims, right? Why are you know what I mean? Now, if the Pope goes to it says all Christian countries, you guys are not allowed to have nuclear weapons, would we listen to the Pope? All these countries that are predominantly Christian. No, a lot of Christian countries do not listen to the Pope. And yet, somehow, and also the whole scandal thing, right? Child abuse scandal that the Catholic Church has. But when it comes to Iran, it is a democracy. Like, who puts the crown on the king's head in Britain? You know what I mean? And so it's weird to me, right? Now, a lot of people don't, regard that. But I think it is important that we do not look at it like in the same way that Western imperialists try to frame it. Because the United States is always trying to infiltrate so that they can topple their government, their democratically elected government, from the inside. This is why China has the Great Firewall. It's not to lock out Chinese people. In fact, they allow Chinese people to get a VPN and then go to the World Wide Web through a VPN. They can do that. So it's a way for them to look out, but for the United States cannot look in. See what I mean? Because they want to give their people freedom, but they don't want to make it free for other nations to come in and try to topple what the people decided that they want. And so you have Natalie Bennett basically saying that they smuggled in Starlink, which is not connected to anything Iranian, so that they can take a view and look at what was going on. And so I'm saying all that to say Iran has good reason to be very suspicious about what the United States conducts and how they conduct themselves in all these different scenarios. So let him finish, and then we'll move on.
Doing that, like they stopped pretty much every good program that we started. And when the protest happened, that infrastructure was not there.
All right. So, and by the way, when it comes to the protests, a lot of the people that were being murdered in the streets were actually by infiltrators into Iran. That's what it was. That were backed by Israel and the United States. That's what happened. But they don't want to tell you that. But it's just Donald Trump keeps putting his foot in his mouth without fail. Let's take a look here, and then we'll finish up. But this is also another article that says Trump. Oh, wait. That's not what I wanted. Sorry about that. Here we go. There we go. All right. It says Trump threatens to reignite Iran war with fiery new ultimatum. He says, we'll hit very hard. So it says President Donald Trump threatened to resume the U.S. war against Iran on Sunday with a fiery ultimatum to Iranian officials, warning that if his demand was not met, the United States would hit Iran very hard. Iran must immediately stop their highly paid proxies in Lebanon and from causing trouble. Here's the thing, Donnie, DJ, his middle name is John. DJ, let me tell you something, all right? If you want what you call Iran proxies, where really is just Lebanese resistance, if you want them to stop going after Israel, then tell Israel to stop trying to take their stuff. That's ultimately what it is about. Israel's trying to take the land from Lebanon, and they keep trying to come into their country and mess with their people. And then the Lebanese resistance is like, oh, no, you don't. And so then Israel cries like, oh, my God, they're hurting us. And then the United States is like, hey, you guys are hurting my kid. When in reality, it's like, no, tell your kid to keep his hands to himself. Israel don't want to keep their hands to themselves. Look what they did to Palestinians. And so now they're trying to do it to the Lebanese. And so guess what? Iran was like, hey, they keep messing with y'all. Hey, we'll back you up. And so then Hezbollah's like, hey, keep your hands off Lebanon. And people can say, oh, well, James, you're oversimplifying it. I'm like, no, it's actually very simple. Very simple. Like, for instance, the Israeli occupation of Palestine is actually a very simple thing. Don't let anybody tell you this is complicated. This is not complicated. It's pure, good old-fashioned settler colonialism. That's all it really is. It's taking somebody's stuff and claiming it as yours so you can have more power. That's all it really is. It's not that complex. Don't let anybody tell you it's more complex than what it is. And also, they're insulting your intelligence when they tell you, oh, it's more complicated, as if you don't understand it. No, you do, and they do. They just don't want you to understand. Because if you understand, that means you're going to be on the people who are the victims. And that's what they don't want. That's what people like Naftali Bennett don't want. The people like Benjamin Netanyahu or Bezalel Smotrich or Etamar Ben-Gvir. They don't want you to know this stuff. Or Donald Trump doesn't want you to know. Or Jared Kushner, who's not an elected official, who's not really an official United States government official. He's just a stepson for his baby mama daddy who wants to take over that land so that he can build some ugly, gaudy monstrosities known as hotels and probably casinos. Like, that's basically what it is. Stealing the land from people who have been there for thousands of years. Gosh. It is not complex. Don't let anybody insult your intelligence that way. It says the United States agreed to a tentative peace deal on Friday, and for it only to immediately fall apart after Iranian officials announced Saturday it would be reclosing the Strait of Hormuz to commercial traffic, citing violation of the agreement. So, of course, they violated the agreement. That means it's closed. There are consequences to these actions. It says the violation was Israel's continued bombardment of the occupation of Lebanon, which since March has killed nearly 4,000 Lebanese and sparked a humanitarian crisis. This is why they closed the Strait of Hormuz, because they don't want to see more people die. And yet, the United States keeps saying, oh, well, you guys need to open it because and let Israel keep killing people so that we can get the oil, so that we can actually have more power, so that we can take over your countries. And the Lebanese are like, yeah, we're not stupid. Nah, you guys ain't taking over nothing. And Iran's like, yeah, what Lebanon said, you guys aren't going to do that. And so Donald Trump's like, oh, we're going to hit him really hard. Oh, like you hit him so hard over the last few weeks. If you hit him so hard and took him out, then why are you still at war with him? Why are you negotiating with somebody who you taken out? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, make that make sense. It says Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, which is supported by Iran, has attacked Israeli invading forces. I like that they put that in. Israeli invading forces, as well as launched attacks in Israel proper in response to Israeli hostilities. In response to that, Israel has expanded its military operations in Lebanon, with one Israeli official pledging Friday that for every tear of an Israeli mother, 1,000 Lebanese mothers must weep, and that all of Lebanon must burn. This is what they said. That doesn't sound proportional to me. And in fact, all the Israelis that are coming in to take over Lebanon, they're the ones in the wrong. And yet, they're going to try to make sure that all these Lebanese people die just because somebody decided to let their mouth write a check that their ass couldn't cash. So this is why J.D. Vance has left with his empty pockets. He ain't got nothing. There's no deal. Trump sabotaged it. And guess what? There's not going to be anything that's going to result of this positive for the United States. And also, you got to remember, Iran has the backing of Russia and China. I don't know about you, but the United States looks like it's on the losing side. And they're flailing their arms to try to see what they can get from this. But the only thing the United States actually got was a 2-piece in the biscuit. And if you're black, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Go ahead and like the stream. Oh my gosh, they left empty-handed. Like, just don't threaten people, man. Like, what the heck is wrong with y'all? Y'all violated the agreement. They didn't violate no agreement. Y'all did. And then you want to get mad at them for setting the boundary? Like, what the hell is wrong with you? Oh, narcissistic ass government. I'm talking about the United States. People want, and they wonder why like 99% of the global South don't like the United States. And even a lot of the global North, they're like, man, the United States ain't shit. And they're out trying, and you know what's funny about all this? They're trying to do all this propaganda that all these Europeans coming to the United States going, oh my God, the United States is so nice. Oh my God, the United States is so great because of the World Cup. When in reality, a lot of people are like, man, the United States is a hellhole. And all these people going, oh my goodness, I can walk. Like, this is one like white South African dude that's like, oh my God, I can walk out here in the middle of the night here in the United States. It's nothing like South Africa. Oh, you can read the anti-black racist coding in what he's saying. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, right? Go into any poor neighborhood in the United States. I don't care what color it is. If you have people who are desperate because of the economic situation that the parasite class puts us in, then guess what? You're going to get got. That's just how it is. You can put me in a white hood in the middle of West Virginia. Guess what? You going to get got. And they're trying to make it look like the United States is some land of milk and honey. Nah. More like the land of molded milk and high fructose corn syrup. Nasty, sour ass mess. The heck? And trust me, I live here. I know exactly what I'm talking about. And they're trying to make it look like, whoa, the United States is doing all this great stuff for their people. No, they're not. We don't even have universal health care. What are y'all talking about? Inequality, I tell you. All right, so I checked Kick and I checked Rumble. And let's continue on in here and the rest of the chat. And then we'll be heading on out. Oh, wait. I think I saw we got a couple of super chats here. Just want to make sure I don't miss any. Oh, I wish I had a producer. I'm already starting to see some of what y'all said. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it. See, this is why I love my audience. This is why I like y'all so much. All right. Kid Grigor says, want to be tough guy Trump. Look, as a fluffy man, right? Ain't nobody stunting that pudgy looking tangerine. Gold Commander says Lebanon been gone long time ago. They have been nothing more than prisoners for decades. Yeah, man. I would love to have Rania Khalek on to talk about it because she's Lebanese. Man. Edward says Trump can't keep his mouth shut. Trump only cares about money. He doesn't care about the Americans wanting peace. He cares about his corporate donors. Yeah. And I didn't cover it because it's already been covered, but a lot of people have covered already that Tucker Carlson has officially left the Republican Party. I know Savvy just covered it yesterday. Trump done lost Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is no longer a Republican. Now, he's still a conservative, but he's not a Republican. Right? Marjorie Taylor Greene left the Republican Party. Candace Owens pretty much is out of the Republican Party. Like, they're out. They're like, nah, bump this. Because y'all, now don't get me wrong. Like, I still get grifting vibes from them. But at the same time, it's like when the Republican Party is no longer popular and you have to go into a completely different direction, man, that says something. Cobra Commander says not even good villains either. They Sam Bankman and other nonsense. Nika says Fox is United States propaganda anyway. It is, but so is MS Now. So is Breitbart News. So is ABC News. So is CBS. Definitely CBS. So it's NBC, Washington Post, New York Times. Like all these rags, man. They're all U.S. propaganda. I'm even saying Jacobin now. We all saw what they did, Chris Smalls. Let me see. Yeah. Yeah, I just said orange toddler having a fit. He is an orange toddler. My goodness. Sela says, do we really believe the WASP colonizing empire talk? For those of you who do not know, WASP is an acronym for White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, which is pretty much the people who colonized this country. So, yeah. Edward says, imagine Trump is telling the Iranian president to shut up when Trump opened his big fat mouth to sabotage the deal. Trump is an idiot, right? Thank you so much for the super chat, Roger. He says, Senate just voted to limit Trump's Iran war powers. About damn time. Oh, wait. They want to do it this late in the game now? They started, on February 28th? So let's count March, April, May, June. 4 months in. 4 months in. And now y'all want to talk about, we got to limit his powers. Man, get the heck out of here. Y'all sat on your hands and allowed this thing to continue this long. And now that, in 5 months, we're going to be having a midterm election. And now you guys want to change things up. I'm not talking to you, Roger. I'm talking about to elected officials. Y'all want to change things up now because you realize that war with Iran was a really bad idea. But y'all sat in y'all hands and like, what are we doing? Yeah, we needed to have the war powers. And when it was scheduled, people like you, Hakeem Jeffries, decided to put it off, knowing that Donald Trump was going to go into the war with Iran. Oh, Zionist ass. And then guess what? Now y'all looking stupid. You're looking stupid now. Because you allowed this to happen. And Democrats, look, this ain't making y'all look any better. Because all y'all want to do was do a vote just so that this war is done through the proper channels. Because you guys actually wanted to vote for the war. It's just you're just mad that he didn't give you a chance to vote for the thing that is actually bad for us. But you guys wanted to vote for it instead of against it. Gosh, I tell you, man. Jacqueline says, I've been checking to see what Abby and Mikhail start. They didn't do any. Are you talking about Abby Martin? Holly says, exactly, JB. That's the Iranian system. Man, I'm telling you, man, this is what Holly also said. That's what Pompeo said. Mossad walking in the streets with the protesters. Yep. Sean said, thank you very much for the super chat, Sean. He says The Hague is where Trump needs to be at this point. And an orange jumpsuit. He may look naked, though, because, orange jumpsuit, kind of flesh tone, looks like his skin. Ooh. Anyways, make it black and white stripes. Let's make it traditional, right? Edward says Israeli soldiers were supposed to leave the occupation of Lebanon, but they are still there bombing. They violated the memorandum of understanding. I am not watching the World Cup. The U.S. is not a great host. No, I talked about that last week. Thomas, Oklahoma says, yes, the Senate limits Trump surrounds war powers right on. Now it's time to make Trump and future presidents actually follow the U.S. Constitution and the people. They won't do it, though. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Jacqueline says Abidou from Noteworthy. Okay, cool. Yeah, flesh tone. Look, Jacqueline, what's the prison uniform for those sentenced to The Hague? I don't know, but I hope it's an orange. Not orange. I hope it's a black and white striped jumpsuit, just like in the olden days. Yep. Chain his legs and hands together just for good measure. Because, we don't want them to get handsy with any women over there. You know how he is. We got to make sure we protect our girls around him. And maybe even some of our guys. But that being said, got to get going. I wanted to show you guys something funny before I head out, because I'm always trying to, lighten the mood, because I think you guys, I don't want people to always leave, feeling heavy. Though, I mean, this wasn't too heavy of an episode of the stream, but I do want to just make sure that people are, feeling better, having a decent time, feeling lighter, informed but lighter. If my Instagram will load, I don't know what's going on. What in the hell is going on with Instagram? Hang on, let me see something. Why isn't my page loading? Fail to load. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I really did want y'all to have something fun to look at before I go. This is one of those days where technology does not work the way I want it to. Like, what in the world are y'all doing? Oh, well. But, oh, wait, you know what? Did I share it as a message? Maybe. Okay. I'll play this one. This one's funny. It's not not long, but I think you guys will like it. Let me see. What load? Never mind. I'm not gonna wait too long. I gotta edit this anyway. But guys, thank you so very much for tuning in. This was a great stream. I will be live next week, of course, and I'm gonna try to see if I can cover any news stories that may happen over the next 24 to 72 hours. It's gonna be a lot, but just please make sure to take care of your mental health. My birthday is next Monday. That's gonna be exciting. Of course, I will be live on Tuesday, the day afterwards, and so we can chat it up. And I'm just grateful for you guys and having this channel, because it allows me to be able to talk about the things that I would really like to talk about and bring you guys along with me. At the same time, having a job is exhausting, and it makes it more difficult to do this channel, but this channel is a labor of love. So if you guys have not already, if you have not, you guys can hype the stream after you finish watching. If you actually liked it, please go ahead and give a like. This helps me out very much, because every little bit helps, and hopefully I'll be able to get to where I would like to, where I can do this more full time instead, so that I give better quality for you guys. Congratulations to my sister Savvy Sabs on 400,000 subscribers. I am so proud of you. You have done the damn thing. And I remember when you were at 2,000 subs. You've done amazing, and I am so glad and proud to be your friend and comrade. So what do we always say, guys? We always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, watch something funny like I was trying to, because joy is revolutionary, or read, because reading is fundamental. I love you guys for being just who you are. Keep being the best versions of yourself, and I will see you guys in the next one. Please make sure also to eat plenty of fiber, because I want you guys to stay regular. Take care. Mwah, forehead kisses, and have a great. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you'd like to see any more, you can look here. Mwah, forehead kisses.